This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
After the abortion, we were both struggling in different ways. I got sad and depressed, and he got quieter. Not talking about it made everything worse. We needed support that understood how complicated this can be. Support after abortion helped us find what fit. My husband used a self-guided secular program, and I joined a faith-based group. Your donation helps women and men find hope and healing after abortion. Visit supportafterabortion.com/iheart-hope. That's supportafterabortion.com/iheart-hope.
RingCentral's AI receptionist uses voice AI to answer on the first ring, so you'll never miss a call again. In just a few minutes, you can personalize your own AI receptionist to answer questions, route calls, schedule appointments, and even send texts in multiple languages. Plus, it's easy to scale. Create unlimited AI receptionists across any phone system. It's all powered by one reliable platform for effortless AI communications. See for yourself at ringcentral.com. RingCentral, voice of your business.
Shane, you went to Kansas City last year to see the Chiefs up close and personal. They have 3 picks in the top 40 in this year's draft. They have them for a reason, because they underperformed last year by their own very lofty standards, and also because of the Trent McDuffie trade, which sees them with 2 first-round picks and then a high overall pick in round 2 as well. They're at number 40 overall in round 2. They do have a lot of areas to address. There's a high degree of confidence that they will do so. You're not alone in expecting the Chiefs to come roaring back this year. As we said, they're joint favourites to win the division and head straight back to the playoffs.
It's funny, you were mentioning my trip to Kansas City, World Cup host city, of course, as well. Interesting to see if Messi Mania. And I was actually just going through this Lamar Hunt book as I was flicking through it last night. And it was interesting to sort of like how so much of the philosophy of the club is about sort of like the sort of big long-term thinking. And that I think, and that wasn't always successful, particularly in a lot of time when Hunt was around. It's only really been recently they've been able to sort of really utilize sort of draft picks and grow up. And when you look at what they've done in the offseason, look at the departures. I mean, so many of the players who are going out, it's in the defense. It seems like the defense is really being prized for a rebuild. And that's as much as I'm confident that the Chiefs are the betting favourites to win this division. They are my favourites to win this division even before the draft. I think the offense is going to come back and be one of the strongest units that Holmes had to work with in a while. And they still have Travis Kelce in there, which means they don't have to spend too much capital on trying to get a replacement tight end. It's the defense that is the biggest question mark for me in terms of many different areas. And the key to that is whether they'll be able to give somebody up to George Karlaftis who can bring pressure in, get sacks frequently, and just you stick with the Spags coaching model of just being adaptable and being versatile to the offensive line you're facing against, and just getting in those hits quick and often. I think the Chiefs are in a great position to do it. You mentioned there, of course, the fact they have great capital. The fact that picking at 9 is almost unusual. We're sitting back and talking with the Chiefs with a top 10 pick. Ruben Bain Jr. From the U has been sort of touted as the kind of player who would go in that position. Be interested to hear Ciaran's take as to whether he was the right edge for that system. But that's kind of where they're trending here. It's getting the edge defenders. It's getting cornerbacks to replace your McDuffie, and then there's a defensive tackle as well. It's that defense is in full rebuild mode. I think they're also talking about wide receiver. That maybe that's further down the draft. You could probably get somebody who's pretty coachable when you get down to that sort of 3rd, 4th. Around that sort of tier 2 level. I can see the Chiefs maybe unearthing somebody who we're not talking about here, but because they're in the right place at the right time and coached with the right people, that we could be talking about next year as being, oh my God, this is one of the revelations of the draft. That's just the way, the kind of player the Chiefs will find here, but I think they will go further down that. But yeah, I think look, the defense and the pieces that they're going to need on that to try and still be as formidable as possible and to try and win situational football, the way their offense will be still very good at situational football would be key. It'd just be interesting to know whether they decide to use all three of those sort of tier one picks in that, or whether they will mix it up and maybe use the picking later on in the first round as well as early in the second. 29th overall or 40th overall, whether to use that that second round pick on a receiver would be interesting to see. But yeah, it's defense all the way for me for Kansas City. They need to rebuild and put some new energy in that unit.
I can see them using that second round pick, Ciaran Boyle, on a receiver. I love the idea of KC Concepcion, KC going to KC. That could happen, and he's the kind of guy who would thrive in that system, you have to feel. But to Shane's point, the Chiefs have been asking the redoubtable Steve Spagnuolo to do miracles with it's a loaves and fishes exercise that he's had over the past couple of years. They need a completely rebuilt secondary. The capital that they've gotten for shipping Trent McDuffie to the Los Angeles Rams, you would think has to be deployed first and foremost on defense. They'll have an interesting choice to make at 9. A lot of players could be in the range there. They could be in the Mansour Delane. They could be in the Ruben Bain. They could even be in the Sonny Styles sweepstakes, depending on what goes on.
Yeah, and I have to think that the fact that they let Watson and Brian Cook and McDuffie go, I think a lot of that's got to do with the talent that's in the draft this year. I mean, obviously you look at contracts down the line and the old Parcells adage of or a Belichick adage of getting rid of players a year early instead of a year late. So I definitely think that was a factor in there too. Yeah, I think you're right. I really do like Delane for the 9th pick. I mean, we saw with the Eagles. Again, what happened to them a couple of years ago in the playoffs when they got smoked by Tampa Bay? They went out and got Quinyon Mitchell, and then they took care of that secondary issue. And I think that's what the Chiefs are going to address first and foremost. I think Caleb Downs is going to be. I think he's going to drop to 9. I think a lot of teams are going to go heavy on the Reese Styles, Jeremiah Love train, and I think he's going to be there. I think Downs will be there. At least if it's not Downs, then it'll be Delane at 9. I think one of those two will be available. And I think that's where the Chiefs go. They're going to address those safety and corner issues. I know they did pick up Alohi Gilman, but that's probably a little bit of a stopgap right now. I think they're going to go heavy on corners and safeties in those first 3 picks that they have. So that's going. The other thing is we talk about the wide receiver part. Again, we're looking at a wide receiver room that's looking very familiar for the Chiefs with Xavier Worthy, 5'11", Rashee Rice, 6 foot. Tyquan Thornton a little taller. They've got to get height in there. Can you imagine? Mahomes with a T Higgins or somebody 6'4", 6'5", and the damage he could do. I mean, we talk about Chris Brazell out of Tennessee. That could be an option.
AJ Brown.
AJ Brown, yeah, or even KC Concepcion. So I mean, there's a lot of talent out there for wide receivers. I just think Mahomes they've done a disservice to Mahomes the last couple of years and given him slot receivers. Imagine a wide receiver 1 that he could just yoke it up to like an AJ Brown. I think that'd be a huge game changer for the Chiefs. So I'd be looking for them to add some height. The kid Boston as well, who's 6'6". I think there's definitely a chance for them to make some moves on wide receiver. But first and foremost, they've got to address that the loss that they have on corner and safety, and I fully think they're going to do that. The other thing we talk about, and probably every other team in the league needs the same thing with the O-line. Josh Simmons surprisingly had a really good season last year, and I don't think a lot of people had that marked as being a possibility. So that, I mean, we know the issues that Chiefs going back to the Super Bowl in New Orleans that they had at left tackle with the Joe Thuney and all that issue they had. They found Simmons, and they were able to figure that out. And with Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith anchoring that O-line too, I think they've addressed that. But the big thing for me is the Chiefs have got to address the offensive problems they have. I mean, in the last 5 losses they had in the season, they scored 10, 13, 9, 13, and 12 points. I mean, that's very un-Chief-like. So I don't think that'll, and that was just, remember we talked about in November, December, that final nail going in the coffin. Well, if you can't bust 15 points in a game, then the nail will be going in that coffin. So I think they're definitely going to start looking at some offensive weapons to add around Mahomes. Obviously, getting the run game, getting Walker added to that run game is going to be a huge addition. It'll almost make that Mahomes and Walker that Sonic and Knuckles Part 2 or Mark 2 in KC and free Mahomes up to do a little razzle dazzle of his own. But the issue with offense has got to be addressed. I think it will be, and I think those safety issues and corner issues will be addressed. I mean, it's almost like they have 3 first-round picks. I mean, 3 in the first 40. That's That's what teams dream about. And finishing 1-8 is going to be a distant memory. I think the Chiefs are going to ride on back, and I think that's going to be a really strong 26 for the Chiefs.
For the guy who was talking about staking the Chiefs through the heart, burning them, and then sprinkling holy water on the ashes last year, you're willing them back into existence here. You want them back in the Super Bowl. Secretly, you love to see the Chiefs, and you love to see Mahomes.
It's not even that. I think the team is so loaded, and I think everywhere you look, between the head coach, the quarterback, the defensive coordinator, the tight end, everything is there. They just couldn't put all, like we talked about it at length last year. All the games that were winning by 1 or 2 points last year, they were losing by 5 or 6. It's just a production issue. I think they'll address it. They got a little bit of play in free agency too. They're not done with that either. So we'll have plenty of time to talk about the Chiefs in 26. But I think they're on the way back.
Brian, you get giddy by the idea that a team that's sitting with the kind of capital that the Chiefs have, because they've got so many options, might execute some kind of a trade. Dare I say that might be in their line at some point, depending on which way the draft board shakes out.
Oh, I love those trades on draft night, Conor. I love the idea of the Chiefs trading from 29 up to find another stellar player, and then 2 years' time we're forgetting about that 1 year of Chiefs mismatch of a poor season. Conor, I'm actually going to go back to something that you said a couple of months back before I even talked. You said it's great to have a surprising season, and it's great to see teams who have poor season coming back and getting to the playoffs, until we get to the playoffs and we don't really get the games in which we desire come January on those cold nights in Dublin, because people are delighted to see the back of the Chiefs. And I was opposed to that. I want to see Mahomes in the playoffs. I know he was injured. I take that situation, but it was more about their box office. The Chiefs, good or bad, whether you like them or love them or hate them, or dubious refereeing decisions, it brings excitement during the playoffs. The 9th pick, Conor, and Ciaran said they need to get a big, strong, tall wide receiver for Mahomes. But what happens if the scenario plays out where Tate doesn't go to the Browns at 6, or something untoward happens in the top 5 and it completely distorts the first selections, and they get to 9 and he's on the board, and they do need to do a lot with their defense. And it looks like that McDuffie trade is, as you said, is suggesting that they're rebuilding this team similar to the way they did with Tyreek Hill trade, except they're doing it on the defense. But what happens if Tate is there at 9? Is he too good a player not to take and give Mahomes another explosive weapon? And maybe they would see Mahomes and the offense come back to what we've seen a couple of years ago with those really expansive throws down the field to Tyreek Hill, as opposed to that kind of organic offense we've seen where they were mixing up to all different players going to the playoffs. I do think at 29 they're in a striking position to try and move up to try and get someone else. You said they've got additional picks because of the Rams trade. If there's something there that they can go after, maybe you take Tate early and then they can go after that really stellar defense player by moving up the board. I think they're in a great position.
Yeah, exactly. Like, why wouldn't you do that? I mean, you talk about teams' windows. Like, you want to squeeze every Super Bowl opportunity out of the Mahomes window that you can. A player like that is never going to come around again. You do whatever it takes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are assuming that the Chiefs are not necessarily going to self-destruct, but they won't be back at the level in which they were 2 years ago, because Broncos have just won the division. We're talking about the Broncos potentially running it back. The Chargers will be thereabouts, and people are suggesting, well, maybe the Chiefs aren't there. Just they're favourites for a reason, but they're joint favourites for a reason, Conor, because people do believe that it's a one-off. Andy Reid will be stewing all off-season, and he'll find a way. And I just think with those 3 picks, they could be giving away that 2nd round pick, which is an early second, as Ciaran said, to get up the board. And then all of a sudden you've got 2 marquee 4th round players immediately contributing to a Chiefs team. I think they're a dangerous animal next year. They're 18-1 with Quinn Bet to win the Super Bowl. Conor, I think that's way overpriced.